Saheed did not join the war because he loved violence. He joined because the war came looking for him. Before the gun, before the uniform, before the smell of burnt flesh and iron filled his lungs, Saheed had been a young man who believed life followed a simple order. You worked, you married, you buried your parents when the time came. You raised children who would one day bury you. That was the shape of things. That was how the elders spoke of life, as if suffering could be measured and death scheduled politely. He grew up in a compound where mornings began with sweeping and ended with shared bowls of food eaten from the same plate. His mother believed silence was a form of discipline. His father believed work was prayer. Saheed learned early to keep his head down, his voice low, and his hands busy. He was not foolish, but neither was he loud. He listened more than he spoke. That habit would later save him and then haunt him. When tension began, it did not arrive like thunder. Crept. It came in rumors whispered at roadside stalls, in soldiers passing through villages without greeting, in radios turned low at night. Men argued in corners. Women stored more grain than usual. Children were warned not to wander too far. Then one morning, soldiers arrived and did not leave. They took food first, then goats, then young men. Saheed watched from behind his mother as his cousin was dragged away, his feet scraping the dust, his mouth opening and closing like a fish pulled from water. No explanation was given. No resistance was tolerated. That night, the village burned at the edges, and the smell of smoke lingered for days. Saheed joined shortly after, not because he wanted to fight, but because the choice was already made for him. Men his age were either taken or hunted. To stay behind was to become prey. The military promised protection, purpose, and food. It promised dignity wrapped in a uniform. His father did not bless him. His mother cried quietly, packing his clothes as if she were preparing him for burial. At the recruitment camp, Saheed learned how quickly a man could be stripped of his former life. Names became numbers. Hair was shaved. Bodies were inspected like livestock. The shouting never stopped. Hunger became normal. Fear became background noise. Training was brutal and short. There was no time for careful instruction. The war did not wait for men to be ready. Guns were placed in their hands with the expectation that instinct would do the rest. Saheed learned to shoot, to crawl, to run when told, and to freeze when ordered. He learned that hesitation could get you beaten, or worse. He learned to sleep beside strangers who would soon become family, then corpses. His squad formed slowly, not through ceremony, but through shared exhaustion. There was Musa, who joked too much and prayed too loudly. There was Emeka, quiet and precise, who cleaned his weapon like it was sacred. There was Bello, barely 18, whose hands shook until the first time he fired at a living man. They became brothers without ever agreeing to it. The first battle shattered Saheed's understanding of reality. He had imagined war as something distant, like stories told by old men with missing limbs. What he encountered instead was chaos without pattern. Noise that tore through the skull. Bodies collapsing without warning. Orders shouted and immediately contradicted. The earth itself seemed to rebel, exploding beneath their feet. Saheed fired his gun without knowing if he hit anything. He moved because others moved. He dropped because others dropped. When it ended, when the shooting slowed and the smoke thinned, he realized he was alive by accident. That night, Musa vomited until he collapsed. Bello did not speak at all. Emeka stared at his hands, turning them over as if expecting blood to still be there. Saheed did not sleep. The war stretched on, swallowing days and weeks. Villages blurred together. Hunger sharpened tempers. Death became routine. They stepped over bodies like obstacles. They stopped asking names. Each loss hurt less than the one before, not because it mattered less, but because there was no room left to feel. Then came the ambush. It happened fast and wrong. Intelligence failed. The road they were meant to secure turned into a trap. Gunfire erupted from the trees, from the ground, from places Saheed could not see. Orders were useless. Men screamed. Bello went down first, his helmet rolling into the ditch. Musa tried to reach him and was cut in half by gunfire before he took 3 steps. Saheed crawled, dirt filling his mouth, heart pounding so hard he thought it would break his ribs. He watched Emeka fall beside him, eyes wide, blood bubbling where words should have been. When it ended, Saheed was alone. Not the only survivor others lived, but alone in a way that never left him. His entire squad was gone. Men he had eaten with, slept beside, trusted with his life, erased in minutes. That was the day Saheed stopped going forward. He remained in the army, but something inside him shut down. He avoided the front when he could. He volunteered for support tasks. He became quiet even among soldiers. When orders came to advance, his body obeyed, but his mind stayed behind, frozen on that road where his brothers died. Eventually, after injury and exhaustion, Saheed was discharged. They called it rest. They called it recovery. They did not call it what it was: abandonment.
Civilian life did not welcome Saheed home. The village he returned to looked familiar but felt wrong, like a dream reconstructed poorly. Houses were missing. People spoke carefully, measuring each word. Children stared at him with curiosity and fear. He wore the war on his body even without the uniform, his posture stiff, his eyes always scanning. At night, he woke screaming. Gunfire echoed in his head. Faces appeared when he closed his eyes, Musa laughing, Bello shaking, Emeka bleeding. The silence after the ambush screamed louder than any weapon. People expected gratitude, survival, relief. Saheed felt none of it. He tried to work, but his hands shook. Loud noises sent him to the ground before he could think. The smell of smoke made him nauseous. He avoided crowds. He avoided mirrors. When asked about the war, he said little. When praised, he felt sick. Guilt settled into him like a second spine. Why him? Why had he lived, when better men had not? Why did his heart still beat when theirs lay silent in the dirt? The questions had no answers, only weight. He carried them everywhere. Relationships suffered. The woman he had once planned to marry looked at him like a stranger. She tried, at first, to reach him. She spoke softly. She waited patiently. But Saheed could not touch her without flinching. He could not lie beside her without feeling trapped. Eventually, she stopped coming. Friends avoided him. Not out of cruelty, but discomfort. Saheed reminded them of things they wanted to forget. Of sons who never returned. Of brothers who disappeared. He became a ghost among the living. He worked in small jobs repairing nets, carrying water, tending crops, anything that kept his hands moving and mind distracted. He watched the world carry on as if nothing had happened, as if death and survival were interchangeable. He drank little, slept little, spoke less. Some nights, he sat staring at the horizon for hours, tracing the path of smoke from distant fires, wondering if he had already died inside. Then the news came. A nearby town had been attacked. Civilians slaughtered. Homes burned. Survivors fled with nothing but horror etched into their eyes. Soldiers were retreating, regrouping. Volunteers were needed. Saheed felt something stir within him. Fear came first. Then anger. Then a familiar, numb clarity. He knew what this meant. He could stay. Hide. Let others fight. Let the war consume someone else. Or he could pick up the gun again. That night, he did not sleep. He sat alone, hands clenched, listening to distant cries. Memories surged, but this time they did not paralyze him. They sharpened him. He thought of Musa's laughter, Bello's wide-eyed fear, Emeka's precision. The dead whispered his name, not accusing, just reminding. In the morning, Saheed joined the men heading toward the town. The gun felt heavier than before. Not because of weight, but meaning. He knew now what it took. He knew what it cost. As they marched, fear returned, not the blind fear of a recruit, but the informed terror of a man who knew exactly what awaited him. He saw Musa in every shadow, heard Bello in every rustle, felt Emeka's absence like a wound reopened. The fighting was brutal. Civilians were everywhere running, hiding, dying. There was no clean line between enemy and victim. Saheed moved through it with grim efficiency, doing what needed to be done, not for glory or command, but because stopping would mean collapse. When it ended, the town was barely standing. Saheed survived again. But this time, survival did not feel accidental. He did not celebrate. He did not speak much. But something inside him settled, not healed, not forgiven, but acknowledged. The war had taken everything from him. His innocence. His brothers. His future. But it had not taken his choice. Saheed returned to civilian life changed again, carrying scars that would never fade. He would never be whole. He accepted that. Some nights, the guilt still came. The faces still visited him. But he learned to sit with them, not run. He learned that survival was not betrayal, it was responsibility. He began speaking to younger men, warning them honestly, not glorifying the war. He helped rebuild homes, stood guard when needed, lived quietly, deliberately. He did not call himself a hero. He was simply a man who went to war, broke, returned, and chose again and again to keep living despite the weight of memory. And in a land shaped by loss, that choice mattered.